Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Saturday's edition of Weekend Waypoints for SEC Extra at D1Baseball.com, presented by Plains Coffee Company. A quick word about Plains Coffee Company. I've been telling you about them for a few weeks now. All kinds of good news to be found with Plains Coffee Company. It is a husband and wife team roasting coffee beans in the heart of SEC country. Doesn't get any more local small business than that. Free shipping on any order in the United States. So free shipping on your coffee bean order. If you're like me, that's kind of an annoying thing when you're shopping online is you think you get a good price for something and then you go to checkout and realize the shipping makes it a little more expensive than you had initially anticipated. That's always kind of frustrating, but free shipping at Plains Coffee. And then you can use code baseball for 10% off of your order at plainscoffee.com. So all kinds of good news there. Excited about our partnership with them. We've got some other things coming with Plains Coffee Company later this season. Looking forward to continued collaboration with them. So go visit Plains Coffee Company, support the people who support us. That's all I asked here. And do so with Plains Coffee. And if you don't care for coffee, they also have tea options. So there's really very little excuse not to go buy you something from plainscoffee.com. Okay, let's talk about a wild day in the SEC yesterday. We had some in the words of Johnny Carson, some wild, wacky stuff happening yesterday. So game of the day was where I was. Arkansas 4, LSU 3 in 10 innings. Just as tense as it sounds, really. I mean, game was tied 3-3 for much of the second half of that game, and went into extra innings and was just as tight as could be. Pretty well played game up until the end. So you appreciate that about it too. Let's pull up the box score here. I've got it. Just so we can, because there's a lot to get to with this, a lot of different things to get to with this game. First of all, Jeremy Scott on Facebook, thank you for checking in. As always, he says Roll Tide, of course, and then great for Bama baseball and softball and Elite Eight tonight. Yeah, the basketball Crimson Tide, the men in the Elite Eight tonight. Big game for them. Larry says Arkansas really good. Yep, totally. They just, this is what this program does. Like, it's not perfect. Like, you can nitpick the offense, whatever, but like they just win. They find ways to win, and that was kind of the same thing we saw last night. So let's talk about it. The MVP for me was the Arkansas bullpen. I mean, you could look at some other guys. I mean, Peyton Stovall at the top of the order going 3 for 5. He made some excellent defensive plays as well, including a kind of an unassisted double play ball where he charges a ball, tags the runner on the way by, throws to first to get out of a jam. And he's been such a spark plug since coming back. I think it's easy to forget that, he was dealing with an injury last season that really limited him and was just kind of doing the best he could. So it's been a long time since we've seen Peyton Stovall healthy. And maybe we just haven't seen the best of Peyton Stovall yet, but certainly with the way he's swinging the bat and playing defense right now, he really looks the part. So he was certainly a part of it, but the bullpen was just so good. I mean, Molina, the start for Molina, I think, was better than these numbers suggest. A lot of that traffic was early in the game. He kind of got better as the game went on, the 4th and 5th inning. Then he just ran into some trouble in the 6th, and they turn it over to Christian Fouch, and Fouch lets the runner score on a sacrifice fly, but limits the damage by getting that double play ball to Stovall, and then Gackle after that, and then Stone Hewlett, who's just excellent in his role as a lefty specialist. So tough in lefty on lefty matchups. Poor Josh Pearson for LSU has had to face him 2 nights in a row in a pressure spot and has struck out looking both times. So just a tough assignment there, but just basically untouchable. The bullpen as a whole, 5 innings pitched, 2 hits allowed, no runs. And this is, I wrote about this. So if you're interested, go read it on the website. Wrote about the strength of the bullpen. That they have guys they haven't even used yet this weekend. Cody Frank, Gage Wood. I expect to see those guys today, kind of regardless of scenario, just to make sure they get work. But Ben Bybee returned in the midweek. He's not on the roster this weekend because he threw 3 innings on Tuesday, but he increases the depth there. Hunter Dietz is on the way back sooner rather than later for him. So this bullpen actually stands to get better, believe it or not. So it's a little bit of a cheat code for Arkansas. Their rotation is as good as it is, and then they have that bullpen as a little bit of an insurance policy. So again, like, you can pick some nits with the offense, but when they're pitching as well as they are, I truly don't see that it's going to be a hindrance for them at this point. So, and then I failed to mention the big hit here, Hudson White. walk off double down the left field line in the bottom of the 10th inning. Will Edmondson got a good jump. He was the runner on first base. Dave Van Horn in the post game press conference lauded him for the way he cut the bag at third base. Was really efficient with his steps that allowed him to score. Also, it looked like Josh Pearson had a little bit of trouble with the ball in the left field corner, maybe cost them a little bit. So he ends up scoring from first on that double. But a good job by Hudson White hunting a first pitch fastball and hitting it hard past Tommy White into the left field corner to secure the win there. Big win for Arkansas and for LSU. Close, but at this point they'd have to be frustrated because they haven't, except for that season or series ending loss against Florida last weekend, they've been right there for the most part, but the wins just aren't coming. And that's frustrating. And this is another one where, they get great relief work from Griffin Herring. I'll flip over to the LSU side of this thing. You see Griffin Herring there, 3 hits allowed and 8 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings. He was dominant for the most part. But at that point he threw in 70 pitches. That's basically a starter, starting pitcher's load there. And so they turned to Thatcher Hurd in a relief outing in the 10th, and it just didn't go great. And 2 base runners, so it's not a huge sample, but that's just kind of the way it goes as a reliever. Is you can have these short little outings that are impactful one way or the other. And so it's clearly a trust circle of one in the bullpen with Griffin Herring right now. And he was great. And you can see why they trust him so much. But, LSU is still kind of on the lookout for somebody else to step up in the bullpen. And that's going to continue. I suspect in the finale today, we're going to see, obviously they're hoping for a good start from Gage Jump, but I think we're probably going to see a good number of relievers and maybe some guys we haven't seen in a while or seen very much, just to try to find somebody, right? You're out there to win the game, sure, but you also have to think about what comes next. And for LSU, that's finding some other arms. All right, let's take this off. I will answer some of the questions. We've got some comments over here. Let's see what we got. Facebook, Renee Gregory Shepard said, just found this today. Thank you for finding us, Renee. We'll be here tomorrow as well for a Sunday edition. We do this typically Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This week we also did one on Thursday because we had so many series starting Thursday. So thank you for joining us. Devin Smith on YouTube. Braden Montgomery's swing is as close to Griffey as I've ever seen. Certainly he's the results look Griffey-esque right now. He had another big game on Friday. I'll have to look at that again. I'll look at Braden Montgomery's swing. I'll have to go watch some tape and really take a look at that because I don't know that I've ever given that thought, but you might be right, Devin. On Facebook, username Skalisk says Gackle is going to make a lot of money in the future. Agreed. Also, Stone Hewlett feels like he has quietly gotten off to an amazing start. Yeah, Hewlett has retired 18 batters this season, 14 of them via strikeout. He's appeared in 11 games and he's gotten a strikeout in every single one of them. And which is pretty impressive when you consider how many of those outings are literally just one batter and it's one batter, one strikeout. So he's been really good. And Gackle, Dave Van Horn said it in postgame that he could start for them right now, but they don't need him to, right? But he's certainly going to be a starter next year. And he's got ace written all over him. It's, fastball that last night was up to 98, but it's been up to as high as 99 this season, I believe. And it's 2 different breaking balls that spin like crazy, 3,000 RPM breaking balls. And he's got a usable changeup too. So that's the starter's repertoire. That's an ace repertoire. He's, he's set to make himself quite a bit of money. That is for certain. Larry on YouTube says somebody better start paying attention to Georgia. We'll get to that a little more in a second, but my goodness, they put it on Tennessee on the road. Yikes. Did not see that coming. So yeah, Larry, you're right. That sweep at the hands of Kentucky 2 weekends ago could not seem any further away than it does right now. Just wild. But yeah, so Georgia, we'll get into that in a minute. And then Scalise comes back on YouTube, says we seem to be getting just clutch hitting. I think that's right. I think it's a lot of that. You've got veterans like Kendall Diggs who are great in those clutch situations. Stovall, I think, is the same way. So I think that's right. And there will be games when you're leaning on clutch hits. There will be games where the offense goes silent, right? You're just not going to get those hits on some days. And That's where the pitching staff is such a like I used the term earlier, cheat code, because you could score 2 runs and win a game 2-1. I mean, this pitching staff's perfectly capable of that. So, especially with Hagen Smith on the mound. So, Scully says, hopefully this is the year. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that this weekend here in Northwest Arkansas. Folks that are like, hopefully this is it. But I know there's a lot of people also that are trying not to jinx it, and I get that too. Jeremy Scott on Facebook. Alabama is the only school to make the college football playoffs and Elite Eight in the same season. Are they good enough to go to the College World Series too? The lineup is. I don't know if the pitching's deep enough right now, Jeremy. With the rotation injuries, Ben Hess has not been the Ben Hess that he was early this season, or we think he can be. The last few starts and the SEC starts, to be more specific, have not been particularly good. So right now, Jeremy, I don't think the pitching is good enough. If they get healthier, if they find some other guys, maybe. Although I say that, and they have found some guys in the bullpen, Heiberger, Fay. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think the offense is good enough, yeah. But it's going to be a matter of, can the pitching be a little bit better? They need Ben Hess to be a real Friday guy, because if you have Hess and Ferrone, I think you're in pretty good shape, no matter what you get on that third day, whether it's Adams or somebody else. But that's what's going to have to change. All right, let's talk player of the day real quick. Some options here. Hold on one second. I forgot to actually select among my options the player of the day, so I want to make sure I get that pick there. Okay. Corey Collins, another big day for Georgia. Speaking of Georgia, so quick pause here, because I said we talk about Georgia. They run rule Tennessee, and it wasn't even close. Like, it was 16-2. Like, it wasn't, some of these, I don't want to say there's anything such thing as like a close run rule game, but sometimes it's like, oh, we scored 4 in the 7th inning and turned what was kind of like a relatively close game into like into a run rule. Like, no, it was 8-0 after 3 innings, and Georgia just coasted to it. And so a lot of guys had good games, but Corey Collins went 2 for 3 with 2 home runs, 2 walks, and 6 runs batted in. Colby Branch went 3 for 3 with 3 runs batted in, and that's big because Colby Branch was off to a bit of a slow start. He was one of the few guys in non-conference on a lineup that otherwise was killing it, that wasn't really hitting home run, he wasn't hitting home runs, but wasn't really hitting, is what I meant to say. He feels like he's starting to come around. That would be huge. He's a guy that they're going to put him in at shortstop every day. He's the everyday shortstop, kind of regardless of how well it's going. So since he's going to be in there, they're going to need him to hit. And yesterday, 3 for 3 with 3 runs batted in. Tanner Garrison for Florida, comeback win for Florida, 7-6. Tough day for the state bullpen. I think it was 5 runs scored for Florida in the last 2 innings. End up walking it off with a Cade Kurland RBI single. Before that, Tyler Shelnut had put together a great at-bat to walk with the bases loaded to drive in a run. So just it feels a little bit, I understand if you're a state fan how it feels like, oh, here we go again. This is what happened last year. I still think it's different in terms of the bullpen. Do they need to clean some things up in the bullpen? Sure. Was it not great that some of the guys have been really steady for you weren't great yesterday? Yes. Hehowever, last year's team would not have been in that close of a game with Florida probably. And on the Florida side of it, first of all, Brandon Neely, he wasn't going to be that stretched out. So he goes, 3 and a third or something along those lines, and wasn't particularly sharp. But Kate Fisher looked more comfortable in the relief role. They kind of piggybacked the two. So maybe that's something moving forward for Florida. But good on them to fight and make that comeback. And such a weird team this year, man. Like, the midweek games have not gone well. They have obvious problems on the mound. The bottom half of the lineup, bottom third of the lineup, I guess, for Florida doesn't really inspire a ton of confidence. And yet, like, they're winning SEC games. Like, the overall record's not all that impressive, but they're now 5-2 in the league, with a chance to win their first 3 series of the SEC season today. That's tough to argue with. So, I think this is just going to kind of be what we're dealing with Florida right now. Is this is kind of like up and downs, and we know that the midweek games are maybe not going to go great, but big win last night. But Tanner Garrison, I called him out because he's not the guy you would expect to be among the most important bats. But yesterday he went 2 for 3 with a home run, and the Florida offense took a long time to get going yesterday. And for a while, Tanner Garrison had like 2 of Florida's 3 hits or something like that. Eventually they came around a little bit, but not the guy you would have expected to be leading that offense. In a losing effort against Texas A&M, as A&M has captured the first couple of games of the series against Auburn, but Auburn had a couple of good days. Ike Irish, double home run, 3 for 5, double home run, 5 runs batted in. Cooper McMurray, 3 for 4 with a double, a home run, and a walk. It's getting a little, kudos to A&M. They win that series. They're kind of plugging along. Got what they needed from Tanner Jones. Offense obviously is excellent. On the Auburn side, it's getting late early for Auburn. They're now 1-7 in the league. There's a team every year that gets off to this kind of start that ends up fine, and maybe it's Auburn. It wouldn't surprise me if it's Auburn, but I do think we kind of have to shift our thinking now of like, okay, maybe this is a team that will be able to fight its way back to being an at-large team, maybe not fight its way back to being a host team. I'd love to see that happen, though. It'd be a fun comeback to watch happen if they can get back into hosting position. But like I said, it is getting late pretty early, and it actually kind of feels like today's game is kind of important. But it's tough. You're on the road, and Justin Lampkin's going for A&M, and he's been really good. And Auburn still doesn't quite know what it's going to get from Joseph Gonzalez today, but it does feel kind of important for the Tigers. So we'll have to see there. Flipping back over to the comments real quick, Armstrong Grappling on YouTube. He says, I have to tell you something, Joe. LSU is the greatest 2-6 team in the history of baseball. I love this team and love the improvement they're making, even in losses. We're finding our guys. I think there's something to that. I definitely do. Like I said, with the exception of the ugly Florida loss in that series, LSU's been right there. The schedule is tough right now. The one thing is, you wish LSU probably wishes they had taken that series against State. Now that State's taking on some losses, so it's not like we're dealing with a juggernaut necessarily there. It's a good team, but yeah, I think they might regret not getting that game there to win that series. But this part of the schedule was always going to be about just keeping their heads above water because it's such a tough stretch. So we'll I agree with you. We'll see. And the Scalise on YouTube says, feel bad for Auburn. They played good against the Hogs, but the West is just strong. Yeah, no, agreed. I think that's right on. Dylan Ward on YouTube, with LSU now falling to 0-3 in the first 3 weekend series, are they in danger of not hosting a regional? As a Hog fan, how high is Nolan Souza's ceiling? Highly touted freshman. Yeah, you like what you see from Souza. That guy who's kind of fought his way into lineup, got a lot of pop for sure. I'll have to kind of continue to evaluate him to see what his ceiling is, but it kind of seems like a guy who's, maybe he's not in the lineup every day here just because they've got a lot of other guys to work in. But certainly a guy the next couple of years you expect is going to be a centerpiece in this lineup this next year and in the year after. And maybe he hits well enough to where they do just have to find him a spot every day. Right now he's, playing 2 out of the 3 games in the weekend or something like it. And maybe he'll kind of force his way into it. Larry on YouTube on Alabama, not this year, but due to their coach, their future is bright. I agree. I like Rob Vaughn as a coach. What he did at Maryland was really, really impressive. So yeah, I think the future is really bright there. Wouldn't shock me if Omaha is in their future at some point soon. Sharkensaw on YouTube, great username there. Nolan Souza is the truth and a better Brady Slavens. Yeah, I could see that. Sure. And Slavens was a really nice player, for a long time. So agreed. Two Hawaii guys on Arkansas's roster. How about that? Interesting stuff there. Okay, let's finish up here. I have to speed through a little bit more of this. There's been a lot of great comments, so I've been trying to read those, but it's made us run a little bit long today. Gage Miller, Alabama, 3 for 4 with a walk. Alabama just kind of ran away with that game. 13-6 final. It was 6-6 at one point, and then Alabama just boat raced South Carolina the rest of the way. There again, we had questions about Alabama coming off last weekend. South Carolina looked great last weekend against Vanderbilt. Alabama comes home. South Carolina goes on the road for this series, and voila, they look like 2 different teams. That just kind of is the home field advantage in the SEC this season, it looks like. Ian Petrutz also for Alabama, 2 for 5 with a home run and 5 runs batted in. And then I mentioned Peyton Stovall for Arkansas, 3 for 5 with 2 doubles on the day. But the player of the day for me was Braden Montgomery for Texas A&M. He's been so good this season. Was good again yesterday, 3 for 4 with a double and 2 home runs. He's been exactly here at D1 Baseball, we had him ranked as the number 1 transfer in the offseason, and he's lived up to every bit of that expectation. So kudos to him. All right, let's talk pitcher of the day. Bryce Cunningham, Vanderbilt. Once again, unfortunately, Missouri's on the wrong end of a great pitching outing for Vanderbilt. But I think there's going to be a lot of days like that for Missouri's offense. Unfortunately, they're hitting something like 135. I looked it up yesterday, but I can't remember the number. 135, an SEC player, something along those lines. Just going to be a tough year for the Tigers. But Vanderbilt with that 4-0 win there. 7 innings pitched for Cunningham. 1 hit allowed, no runs, 12 strikeouts. Good outing there. Trey Pusser started for Kentucky again. It was technically a TBA going into the day. Kentucky goes with Trey Pusser. Another solid outing for him against Ole Miss. 5 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 of them earned with 1 walk and 5 strikeouts. That effort, plus some poor Ole Miss defense, made it to where Riley Maddox's outing, which was quite good. 5 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 runs, but only 1 earned. That outing ended up kind of going to waste because Kentucky wins that game 5-3, thanks in large part to those unearned runs. So that's tough for Ole Miss. They'll need to bounce back the next 2 games, and Kentucky just keeps at it, man. Like they're 6-1 in the league now. 1 win away from being winning their first 3 SEC series, and they've had sure, you can nitpick the schedule a little bit. I mean, they played Missouri, yeah, but also now, like, they swept Georgia. Now what do we think of Georgia, right? Look, a completely different team. And then Ole Miss, obviously, it seems improved over last season. So this would be an impressive series win. Kentucky just keeps plugging away, like, quietly, just like last year. And their record is kind of absurd, too. I think they're 22-4, something like that. I mean, they're just playing really well. And it makes that 1 series loss they took against Kennesaw State earlier this season look really, really weird. But maybe that was a little bit of a springboard for them there. Alan Harris on X says, Gabe Gackle, Arkansas. And agreed. Gabe Gackle, Arkansas. Like, he was really fun to watch, man. Like, that guy's going to be he's already kind of a star, but that guy is going to be a superstar for Arkansas. Okay. The pitcher of the day, though, is Charlie Goldstein of Georgia. Impressive effort. I mean, yes, Georgia got up big early, and it's easier to pitch in those scenarios. I get it. But to hold that Tennessee offense at home to 2 runs, so impressive. He throws 6 innings, gives up 9 hits, but to me, that almost makes the fact that he gave up no runs even more impressive. No earned runs. 2 runs, no earned runs. But the fact that he gave up 9 hits and only allowed those 2 unearned runs is almost more impressive to me. But so Charlie Goldstein, the pitcher of the day, just because A, he made it to where they only had to use 1 bullpen inning. And then B, to largely silence that offense is really impressive stuff. So good on Charlie Goldstein. He's our pitcher of the day. And then finally, our Saturday game of the day, we'll go quickly on this. There are no rubber games in the 4 series that started Thursday, not a single rubber game. However, in those game 3s, I'm looking forward to South Carolina at Alabama. The pitching matchup is a good one. Tyler Pitzer for South Carolina, freshman who was great last weekend against Vanderbilt in what we thought could have been he was a TBA starter. Could have been a spot start, but he earned himself another start. He'll take on Greg Ferrone of Alabama, who has been as important as anybody for the Crimson Tide, honestly. Was not in the initial rotation this season, jumped in with the injury to Riley Quick. It has been really, really good there. So looking forward to that pitching matchup. And Alabama looking for the sweep there. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints, production of SEC Extra at D1Baseball.com, presented by Plains Coffee Company. Again, use the code BASEBALL for 10% off your order at plainscoffee.com. Remember, there is free shipping inside the United States. Husband and wife team roasting coffee beans in the heart of SEC country. You love a small local business like that. Beans aren't roasted until you order them, so they're as fresh as they can possibly be once they get to your house. No coffee beans sitting on a shelf for God knows how long. So order from plainscoffee.com. Support the people who support us. All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the Saturday baseball, and I will talk to you tomorrow morning.